Hello friends. We know very well that how essential is JavaScript, whether you are working as a front-end developer or a back-end. You need to collect data from the user, or you might have to collect data from a REST API, and then you might have to store it in the session or in the local storage. And for all these you need JavaScript. So this particular video I will be emphasizing on specifically on the functionality of the search operation that will be implemented with the help of an array of object. Yes, you rightly heard, array of object is what I'm going to cover up in this particular video. Since we know that data would be in the form of, like, you would be getting data in the form of a key value pair, because when you submit data in a registration form, like in the field in the form of first name, last name, email, password, what are these are different keys, and the value which you are providing are the respective data associated to that key, and all these things will be getting stored in the database table under different attributes. So when you are going to pass the data to the server from front end, you are passing in the form of key value pair, and similarly when you are getting data from the server, you too will be getting in the form of key value pair. So for that reason you need to have adequate knowledge in context to array of object, because that's what will play a very crucial role in your real life scenario. So in this particular presentation I'm going to emphasize more on the array of objects, how it works, and I will be storing those array of objects in the local storage, and then I will talk about all these 8 different functions which are very crucial in performing search operation. Well, I have divided these 8 functions in in 2 categories, where each category has got 4 functions. The first 4 functions are primarily going to deal with array of objects, where there will be multiple key value pairs, while the last 4 are respectively going to deal with array, but they are in the form of a primitive type, like a string or a number or boolean, in that format. Okay, so that's how this segregation has been done. In context to this particular video, since I'm working on array of object, primarily I will be making use of the following function, and I will tell you how these functions are interrelated or how they are different from each other. So let's move on to the HTML page first, where you have got a form, and the form name is called user form, and inside this I have got the DOM elements. As you can see right over here, I have got let me open this DOMs. This is the first name, this is the last name, this is in context to email, and this is in context to the phone numbers, and we also have got one drop down that would demonstrate like a number of years. So I need to select the data from the year. But over here, if you see, I did not populate all those numbers right over here. Instead, this will be generated with the help of a JavaScript function, and then it will embed right in the DOM over here. Okay, and that's how DOM manipulation in the form of an append child will come in picture, that I will be showing you. And this particular DOM need to be rendered initially when the page gets loaded. Apart from these DOMs, there is also a button which will perform the event listener when the user is going to submit the form with the relevant data need to be stored in the storage. Okay, so that's how this particular form is. And there's one more DOM segment where we have got different type of button collection for performing individual functionalities, like search user, render, show all loops, because in JavaScript there are different type of loops are there. You need to understand how they are different from one another. Well, that would be the topic of my another video, where I'll be showing you these loops, how they are going to perform the respective work. And then you have to clear the data, and finally there is something called favorites. You can store out of n number of rows, selective rows as a favorite. So this is also a set of buttons that are going to perform this particular respective work. Plus there are some empty DOMs which will be populating data at the runtime over here. So that's how the segregation has been done, and this is an external JavaScript I have called. So let's move on. As I said, at first I need to render my drop down with the following values. So how do I achieve this? Let me explore you first. So over here, if you see document.addEventListener DOM content loaded, that means this particular function is going to execute immediately when the DOM will be visible in the browser. And over here I've given a call to an arrow function, and inside the arrow function I have written Well, first I need to identify the DOM where the data is going to be displayed, and for that reason let's come to the from and let me show you that here I have got, let me close this. Here I have got my ID, that this is the ID which I will be using it, and this is the DOM that I'm going to embed, so that is called select numbers. So I have identified the DOM on basis of which the number will be populated, and I gave a reference by the name called select. Okay, now what I'm doing, well, I have to, as we know that in a drop down there are two there is a key called select and there is an attribute called option. So for that reason I'm running a traditional for loop. Okay, this is just a traditional for loop which you have seen in languages like C or Java, and here I'm going to create a new option, because you know when those drop down list appears over there, you will find that you have got something called option, and within that option there will be two things. One is called value, that will be kept within the option, and the text content is what will be visible to the end user. The end user will be able to see that. So for that reason document.createElement option is something what I'm going to create, and that's how this is going to be created dynamically. Hence this particular program or this particular segment, you can consider it as a DOM manipulation or runtime taking place. Okay, isn't that great enough? Right. So I have given the name called reference, and within the reference just now I mentioned there will be something called value, and the value will be the numbers that will be displayed to the end user, and for that reason we will be using something called text content. So with the help of text content I will be able to display this thing to the end user. Okay, and finally I'm going to generate this DOM at runtime, and for that reason I will be using append child, and that's how this entire thing will be rendered on the DOM, on a particular DOM right over here. And hence this is an ideal example where you can say that this is how the DOM manipulation takes place in a real life application. So let me show you over here. As I hit the URL and you see over here these numbers are appearing, they are appearing dynamically, and that was the function which I just now talked about that got executed immediately when DOM content loaded on the browser. Okay, sound good? Yes. So that's how this DOM got affected, and now we have to collect the input given by the user, and thereafter I will be clicking the submit button, and once I click the submit button it will give a call to something called submit form. So that would be there right in the JavaScript file. So let's move on over here. As you can see, this is a submit form that will be getting executed. But wait a while, before getting into submit form we need to check out these two lines. What are these? Well, as I said that the data will be stored in the local storage. For that reason I need to do some extra stuff before we get into the data storage part. First of all, I need to check whether the local storage is there or not. So for that reason I'm checking whether the local storage by the name called user data is available or not, and similarly I'm looking for a variable called current ID. Is it available or not? So let me bring you to the browser, and as we can see over here, this is my local storage and I don't have anything as such. So let me reload it once more. No, I don't have anything as such. Great. So when you don't have anything by the name called user data or current ID, firstly you will be creating a blank array. So this blank array will be created for the very first time when there is no entry in the local storage, but thereafter this will not work, because at that point of time the object is already there in the local storage. Then this particular segment is going to work. So it's like an OR operator over here. So the first time a blank array gets generated, and that would be stored inside the user data. Similarly, I don't have any variable called current ID. For that reason I'm just initializing current ID by the value called 1. Okay, that's how these two references got created, one with the empty array, another one with the numeric value 1. Now coming to the next line, Windows on load. Well, I have a function called render, but basically there's nothing to render because I did not store anything. So this render we'll deal with this separately. Right now I'm talking about the submit form. So let's emphasize that user now will fill the data and will click on submit button, and thereafter what exactly happens, that's what we are going to emphasize. So let me expand the submit button, because there are a series of operations that will be happening one after the other. So let me explain these lines very minutely, so please follow them in detail. Okay, so over here I have got a form by the name called user form, and that's what I'm actually targeting. I'm saying documented forms. Look over here, it's not just a singular, it's plural, it's forms, because in one single page there can be multiple forms. So for that reason we have gone for forms, and the name of the form is called user form. Okay, and that's how this reference got initialized, user form got initialized. Okay, now when I will click on any one of the data, which I did not do it at this point of time because right now there is no data available, so for that reason this index is not going to work. This will come later on when I will click any item from the table. Well, over here, as I said, there will be a table that will be rendered over here. As you can see, over here there is a table form result where data will be generated later on with the help of the function called render table. Then we'll come across this particular reference. At this point of time this reference is not there, I mean it does not contain any value. So for that reason index will be simply 0 or undefined, because user is not going to perform any task in context of this line. Okay, so now what I will be doing is that I will identify the respective DOM that is present inside this form tag one by one, and for that reason I'm going to use this ID field. So with the help of ID I'm identifying the respective DOM, and look over here, it is in form of a matrix. If it's form of an array, so form dot first name, last name, email and phone, and selected number, these are all the DOM elements, as you can see right over here, one after the other. Okay, I'm just clipping them close because I can show you the overall flow, how things are working on. So over here I have got the selected numbers, that's the dynamic drop down which got generated. That also I'm picking up the data from this particular statement. So after the execution of these 5 lines I already got the input that the user has given. Okay, now what I'm doing is that I'm targeting a particular empty div tag that is called validation message. Let's come over here. Over here I have got a div tag called validation message, that what I'm targeting. Now you might be wondering that why am I using document.getElement by ID, because in this case I was using form. Yes, you have rightly heard and you rightly said that I was using form because I was inside the form. These DOM were inside the form, so I could reach this DOM through the help of form, but this is not present inside the form. So how can I get into the form in context to validation message? For that reason we are using the document.getElement by ID to track hold of the particular DOM element. Okay, and then the variable got initialized, and I'm just passing on a blank value over here in case if there was any data that will be removed. Now what I'm doing is that since I stored the value in these variables, might be there can be a blank space. For that reason we need to trim off. So this particular reference.value trim will remove the blank space from either side at the beginning or at the end. It's a very good practice, and thereafter you assign the respective value over here. But since the value will be coming in context to drop down in regard to the last DOM element, over here the year, this particular selected numbers would come from the drop down. So there is a slight change in the approach. We are using just dot value, we are not using the trim because we are not typing anything, rather we are selecting. Great. Over here we have done some validation in case if the user did not give any input, then the respective validation will execute. So we can skip for the time being. And now comes the very important thing which I need to tell you. When I will be storing data in my application, prior to that I need to check whether the email which user has given does not match with any email that is already there in the system. So for that reason I'm using the function called sum. So what I'm basically doing, I'm trying to match, or I'm trying to search the email that I'm giving. Does that email match with any existing email? It's something like you go to the shop for purchasing some item or particular item. You tell the shopkeeper that I'm looking for this item, and then you ask the question, do that item exist in the shop or not? What do you think? What would be the response coming from the shopkeeper? Well, you have rightly judged. It will be either yes or no, right? The same thing happened in case of sum. So over here, this is my ultimate resource where my data will be whole, right? And this resource is going to be right over here when we created this array. So I'm just checking that do that resource, that means that's an array of objects, giving a call to the sum function, and here we are like iterating over all the objects because it's an array of objects, so there can be multiple objects, so I'm iterating one at a time. So from this multi-dimensional matrix, it is picking up one object, it is storing it over here inside the user, and the index is going to be 0. That's the first object. Similarly, the second one will be 1, then the third one will be 2, the fourth one will be 3. In this way, one by one, each object will get stored over here, and then we are going to perform, or we are going to give a call to an arrow function, and we are going to check that the email exists in the matrix. Does that match with the email that I have given in this particular reference variable? If it does match, and the value of I, if it is not equal to index, well, I am telling you index is right now not existing, or it can be considered like a 0 whatsoever, not even 0, it's undefined. If both are true, in that case I will say that this is going to return a value true. Otherwise it will return a false. That means if the ID which I have email ID which I have given, if it does match with the existing one, in that case sum is going to return me true. Remember this, you go to the shop, you ask the shopkeeper, do I have this item? The shopkeeper would say either yes, or else he or she is going to say no, right? So for that reason, is duplicate email is going to store either 0 or 1, or either true or false, and that's what I'm going to check over here. If it is true, then I will say that the email is already existing, and if it is false, then we will not do anything. We'll simply come up, we will continue. Again, let me say, if it is present, if it is true, then I will say this email is already there, and we'll terminate from the function, because there is no point of continuing further, because that email is already there. I cannot save the same email twice. But what if is duplicate is going to be false? In that case, this particular segment is not going to work. Rather, now we are going to create an object, and this is a very crucial part where you learn that how to create an object. And this object will later on will be stored inside the array, and this is happening at runtime dynamically. So I give an object name by the name called new update user, and since ID does not exist, right? Index does not exist right now, because index will come later on. Actually, index I will be using it context to edit operation. So at this point of time, index is not there. It's like a ternary operation is going on, conditional operation is going on. So index is not there. That's the reason this entire part is going to be false, and this part is going to be true. If you remember, at the very beginning I said that when the current ID is not there in the local storage for the first time, at that point of time current ID is going to be 1, right? So already the value is 1, and this is like a postfix notation. So over here index will be value 1. That means a current ID which is initially holding the value 1 will transfer the value 1 to index, and thereafter it will become 2, and this 2 is for the second object. Okay, so once you pass the value and then you increment, that's how the postfix operator is going to work. And the first name, last name, email, phone numbers, related numbers, which you have already given, all these things have been passed respectively on the key, and that's how you are creating a new object. Sound very interesting, isn't it? Now I have to store the data, right? I just want to check once again, is there any value index? No, this will happen when I will go for edit operation. Since index is not having any value, so it's false, and then it comes to the else part, and thereafter what I'm doing, I am giving a call to the push function that is going to work on the array, and that would insert the object which I have just now created above. That object is getting stored inside the array. So after the end of this particular line, you find the object is present inside the array. And now it's the time to pass this particular object into the local storage for future retrieval. And for that reason, I'm giving a call to set item. So local storage of set item would give a call, need to be called, and I'm passing the data from a key value here. So this user data is going to be key, that would be reflected right over here, and in context of value will be the object that I'm going to pass it. So here is my object, which is my, basically it's not an object, it's an array of object. So that one I'm going to pass. Remember this object, array of object, when it just got created, it was in the form of, basically the form of a JSON object. So I need to convert the JSON object into JSON string. And what do I mean by that? Well, if it is JSON object, then the key of those object will not have quotation. But when you convert the JSON object towards JSON string, even the key of the JSON will be wrapped within double quote. Don't worry, I will show you even that as well. So that's how we are going to convert the JSON object to JSON string prior to storing in the local storage. Whereas on the other hand, what you have got a variable called current ID, which is of 10 numbers. I need to convert it to true string. So to string will be converted. That means it will be also converted to string. And thereafter, the array and the current ID whose value would be 2 by now, because already a post increment has taken place, will now be set in the local storage. And then we are going to clear the form, and then we are going to give a call to the render template. Okay, so let me just show you the output once, and then I will come back and execute and explain you a few more stuff. So as you can see, local storage is empty right now. So let me add a data like Swaroop and my last name, and let me add an email ID like swaroop@gmail.com, and let me give a random phone number like 11223344, and let me choose a value from the drop down, like around, I will go for a number here is 7. Great, and let's click on submit button. Bingo, as I do that, you can see the data being populated very neat and clean in the page. At the same time, if you see over here, the local storage has also got generated where user data is a key, user current ID is the key, and as I said, the post income will take place. You pass the value 1, and that 1 is right over here in the form of an ID, and after passing the value to ID, you just got incremented from 1, it became 2. And as I was saying, that JSON string, look over here, the JSON string has converted even ID wrapped within quotation. Everything apart from the value, which is a numeric form, everything is in quotation. First name in quotation, value string, it's obviously will be quotation, last name is in quotation. So that's how JSON.stringify works. Remember, JSON.stringify takes a JSON object, and JSON object does not have a quotation within the key, but JSON.stringify will convert the JSON object to the string type prior it gets stored inside the local storage of the browser. Got it? And now if I try to resave once again, okay, let me go for one more record like Kabir Khan, and email ID is Kabir and @gmail. Let's go with Hotmail. Let's go for Gmail only, gmail.com. And now I have a phone number like 1122334455, and let's go of age of value 4, and click on submit button, and the data gets populated right over here. At the same time, the current ID from 2 it becomes 3, and here are the objects. Okay, so on the above you are seeing in the form of JSON stringify, and over here you are seeing in the form of JSON parse. So after passing, the ID will not have quotation, first name will not have quotation, all these things will not be there in the quotation. So for the last time I want to insert one more record, and this time I will be giving the same email ID just to show you that how the sum function is working. The sum function will always return true if an item is found to be true. That's what I just want to show you once again, that how exactly the sum function is performing. Remember, I don't want to allow storage of same data, so that I don't want. So for that reason, I just need to see whether the data which I'm going to provide, is there any data existing prior or not. So with the help of sum function I will be doing it. So let's come over here, let me give first name. Well, I can give some of the first name, like I'm giving it John, because your unique identifier is email, John Carter. Now suppose I'm going to Gmail of my name, that is called swaroop@gmail.com, and I'm giving update number like 33445556. It doesn't matter what number you are giving. What matters is that this particular ID is already there. So if I try to save it, boom, this email is already there, the cursor is waiting over there, and there has been no insertion in the local storage. Still the same, there is no insertion has taken place in the local storage, and that's obvious it would have been. Okay, so how exactly we figure out with the help of some function returning a boolean value true and false. So coming back to a list which I have created, and this is very handy one. So whenever you are performing any search operation, first you ask the other side, it's going to be an array of primitive data type or array of object. If it's a primitive data type, then we can go with these 4 functions. Every will be working if you are going to perform a search operation, which is going to be applied to all the item in the array. Like for example, firstly, this is going to work on primitive type. So let's consider I have an array where some numbers are given, and imagine by chance all these numbers are greater than a particular number, like suppose 40. In that case, if you give a call to every, and you say that if the item of the array are above equal to and above 40, then only it will return true. So when all the item of an array matches, it will return true, otherwise false. Include will return true and false. Yes, return true if it is there, or return false, but it's going to work on primitive type. Index of, it's going to return index of the particular occurrence of the element in context to array, and in case the item is not found, then it will return minus of. So it will start from the 0 index at the beginning, and last index of will start from the very end and check out whether the item is there or not. If not, then it's going to return -1. So all these 4 functions are meant to be operated on the array of string type. But what about array of object, which I am more emphasized with? And this is the reason why I've gone for sum, because it will not continue the search operation till the very end. The moment it will find one item, it will stop immediately, because it has performed a search operation, it got the result. So what's the point of continuing? Because I just want to check whether the item is there or not. Hence the return type of this function is just going to be boolean, true or false, and nothing else. Now in case of find, it will return the very first element of the condition. In case of find, you are not going to return a boolean, rather you're going to return the object that actually got match. Okay, it's going to return that object. And in context 2, it will stop immediately after getting the first one. In case of first index, here we are going to get the index number of the item that actually got match, not boolean, not the object or the index number. And filter is going to return me an array of object, where it will be providing those objects where the search criteria did match. So in case of filter, you are just going to get an array of objects where either one object will be there or multiple objects it will be there, in case if that search operation has been present in multiple occasions. So each occasion it will pass that response to the filter as well, and that's how you get a new array where the search criteria has been matched. So finally, in context to our requirement, where we were just checking whether the item is there or not, that is in context to boolean response, sum would be the most appropriate function. Okay, so that's how I try to explain you how array of object work, how do we create an array of object, how do we handle local storage, and many more things are going to come, because as you can see over here, a lot of more functionalities are there, and this is just going to work more. So I will definitely make more videos on this particular program, where I will illustrate individually how these functions are achievable. And we also saw, remember, I also showed you how to perform a DOM manipulation runtime with the help of append child, and these are very important. So make sure you go through the video repeatedly and try to figure out how exactly I achieve all these functionalities. Okay, in my upcoming videos I will be talking about rest of all these functions, so just stay tuned, and very soon I will be coming back once again. Okay, until then, have a nice time. Bye bye.